What's up, everybody? We're back already, going for 2 vlog posts this week as requested 2 videos ago. Like I said, going to try to crank up the volume, get this channel pumping, and just keep hammering away. So most likely playing some 2-5 today, no 5-10. There's also a new game that they started here. It's a 1-3 deep stacked where you can buy in for up to $1,000. Kind of interested to play it and see, what the games are like there. But either way, we're going to go in here, play some poker. I'm just ready to play. I'll see you at the table. So we're not going to open this one up with a bomb pot. Instead, we're going to open it with something much more exciting. 6-4 suited on the button. There are 2 limps before me. I raise it up to $25. Really don't ever recommend doing this, but it's a fun group of guys that I sit down with. And I'm on the button, and I like to mix it up, throw them off. So bump it up to $25, and both the limpers come along for a call. 3 ways to a flop, which comes ace, 3, 3 with 2 hearts. So we flop pretty much nothing, but I could always represent an ace, and there's a good chance that our opponents did not connect with this board at all either. Have a backdoor straight draw, so I don't know. I'm going to continue betting. Don't need to bet very big here. And I decide on a bet size of $20, and unfortunately I do get one opponent that comes along with the call. Probably going to shut this down unless I improve on the turn. And for better or worse, I do improve on the turn. I hit open-ended with the 5 of diamonds. So I don't think I have much of a choice. Definitely not going to be winning this with 6 high. It checks to me, and I size up a little bit to $60, trying to put more pressure on middling pocket pairs and flush draws, and I get snap called. So 6-4 suited, not going how I planned. And when the river comes, the queen of hearts, I think it is time to shut this down. He checks really quickly. Have a feeling that I'm being bamboozled here, and I am not going to be putting any more money in here. I think about it for a minute just to save some face, act like I have a decision. Decide to check back, and he flips over ace-5 offsuit. So he was putting me in a trick bag with the 2 pair on the turn, but that is probably what I get for playing 6-4 spades. Just a few hands later, we get dealt a real hand here when we look down at pocket queens. I open it up from the cutoff to $25, or $20 rather, and get 3-bet from the small blind to $75. I look at his stack, and he only has about $500 behind. And that just so happens that that is the exact amount I'm comfortable getting all the money in for with pocket queens. So I think about it for a moment, and I say I'm all in, and put out enough black chips to let him know he's all in for the rest of his money. And he thinks about it for quite a while, and he actually says, I think your pocket queens are probably good here. So calls out my hand, but that definitely lets me know that we're ahead. He asks if I want to run it once or twice. I say whatever you want, and he says, man, that sounds pretty confident. And he decides to fold, and he folds ace-king, which if I was $500 deep, I would have snap called and said, we're running it once, but that does not happen. We scoop about $80 pre-flop with no contest. This next hand, we look down at a pretty decent hand. It's ace-10 offsuit. There's a straddle on the button. The small blind limps, and it folds to me basically in the cutoff. I bump it up to $35, and the straddler and the small blind both come along with the call. So we go 3 ways to a flop, which is 5, 10, jack, rainbow. So not the worst. We hit middle pair, and obviously have the ace. And when it checks to me, I think I could bet here. But I could also check some of the times just for my range. I guess it's not that great. And I have middle pair, have some showdown value. So I just decide to check, and the button checks behind. And the turn card brings the 9 of spades. And when the small blind checks again, I think my hand is okay enough to go for some value. So that's what I do. I decide to bet out $40. Want to try and charge some lesser hands that are on a straight draw, flush draw. You get the picture. And that's what I do. So I decide to bet out $40. The button does not think too long before putting in the call, and the small blind calls very quickly as well. Not really what you want to see with second pair on this board, but no taking that bet back now. Off 3 ways still to a river, which is a very interesting one with the ace of spades. Small blind checks, and I think about this for quite a while between checking or betting. I mean, I have two pair. The board is quite straight. There's a flush out there, obviously. I don't know. It's kind of a tough spot, seeing how quickly they both called. So I decide ultimately to check over to the button and see what he wants to do. I know if he checks back, we're going to be good. And after thinking for a little while, he decides to bet out $200. And with this guy, I'm thinking about it. There's a good chance I'll put in a call here. He's been known to do a little bit of funky things here and there. That is until the small blind snap calls him. And I'm out. So I fold my cards happily, and the small blind shows 3-4 of spades for the flush, and the button shows Jack-9 of clubs for the lesser two pair. So my reads were correct. Easy fold there in the end. It's unfortunate, but we got away with not losing too much money. And finally, since you've all been so patient, it's finally time for bomb pot. We look down at a horrendous hand, but we're here to play, and we're going to a flop. The flop comes, and we have a little bit of equity here. Obviously, we have a 6. We have a straight draw up top. So yeah, trips on the bottom, straight draw up top. The flop comes. One opponent bets out 40. I call. And then the turn gives me the 2 dream cards. I mean, let's be honest. I hit 6s full of queens on the bottom, and I hit Broadway up top. So when he bets $75, I decide to bump it up to $200. This opponent just literally sat down. This is a new player bomb pot for him because he sat down. Sat down with around $600, $700 or so. And I want to raise here, build up a pot so I can pretty much get them all in on the river. Pretty much on any 2 cards. So he comes along with a call, and we're heads up, by the way, if you haven't caught on by now, to a river, which brings another 10 up top and then a 10 on the bottom. So now I have a decision to make. The pot is 560, which is about what he has left. And looking at the board, there's really hardly any way at all that I lose both of these boards. I know for a fact he doesn't have pocket 6s. He probably doesn't have pocket queens. I have a queen, and I know for a fact he doesn't have pocket 10s. And I have Broadway up top, and essentially, I mean, almost the nuts on the bottom. So yeah, not much left to do. I didn't come this far to check it down. I'm going to go for max value. I bet the pot, and he thinks about it for a minute and calls. And oddly enough, 560 is exactly the amount that he has left after all the counting is said and done. And we scoop it. So he had pocket 5s on the bottom for the lesser full house, and just like 1 pair up top. So we scoop a massive bomb pot. Quick shout out to everybody who tells me not to play these. This is why I do it. I know I donk off every now and then in them, but they have been pretty profitable for me. So do not worry. But pretty exciting hand here. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. A couple hands later, I'm in the big blind, and I look down at pocket queens, and it literally folds all the way around to the small blind, who says, "Want to chop?" So I'm like, yeah, great, sure. And then the very next hand, I'm in the small blind, and I look down at pocket queens again. So yeah, we are back-to-back pocket queens. I even showed my pocket queens the hand before and kind of laughed it off. And we get pocket queens again. Folds all the way around to the button, who, thank God, my man saves the day. He limps for $5. I'll take it. Better than him folding. When he limps, I'm not going to stand for this. I bet $25, or $20 rather, I'm sorry, and the big blind and the button both come along for a call. Off to a beautiful flop of 5-5 deuce. So obviously we hit a massive overpair on a pretty dry board. I check just like I would with most of my pre-flop raising hands that miss this flop. And it unfortunately does check all the way around. So we're still 3 ways, heading off to a turn card, which comes the 8 of hearts. So I'm no longer going to be checking this. Somebody has to put some money in here. I decide to bet out a modest $25, just looking for some action. Big blind folds, and then the button decides it's a good idea to raise me to $75. I'm not going to Hollywood any. I just decide to put in the call without thinking too much into it. Seemed like a, I think you missed, so I'm going to raise you out of the pot kind of raise. But that's not the case. I check. He frustratingly checks back, throws his cards in the muck, and says, "You're good." And not the most exciting hand, but thought it was noteworthy. of getting pocket queens back to back, and we take down a small little pot. I missed it off of camera, but I hit quad deuces in a bomb pot, and ended up just applying max pressure and barreling on the turn and river, and took down like a $380 bomb pot shortly after that last hand. But this hand I did get on camera. We looked down at ace queen of diamonds. There is a straddle on in the cutoff. The button goes ahead and limps. I bump it up to $40, and we end up getting 3 callers. So going 4 ways to a flop, which we could not miss any harder with ace queen of diamonds. 3-3-5 rainbow with not one single diamond out there. I don't really think it's a good idea to lead out into 3 other people with pretty much ace high and no real equity potential on the turn. I check, and then it checks around, which takes us to a turn card 4 ways still, which comes the 6 of hearts, no help. And yeah, I'm going to stick to the same plan. I check. It's over on the big blind, who is shuffling some chips, looking like he wants to take a stab at it, or you know, who knows, whatever he's doing. And he does. He decides to place a wager. He bets out $65, folds all the way to me pretty quickly, and I definitely think a lot of times this can be an easy fold. But looking at the board, there's a lot of draws out there with people that would call, flat call, or raise. So I just don't think I'm going to go anywhere just yet. Sounds sticky, I know, but I decided to put in the call, and just something told me that I could definitely still be ahead here. So that's what I do. I put in the call, going heads up to a river. Could be a punt, but only time will tell, and eager to see what happens. And the river comes the 6 of clubs, which is a pretty good card. Makes it harder for him to have a hand, and all the draws that he could have been betting with have bricked off. I decide to check. Obviously, to me, there is no point to betting. A check back would be okay, but that is not what is going to happen. It doesn't look like, as I see him concocting a master plan in his mind, shuffling some chips and counting them out. And he ultimately, after assembling some chips, taking his time, decides on a bet, and a pretty healthy size one, of $180. So I don't know, off the top of my head, just, I don't know, 2/3 pot, whatever it may be. So pretty tough decision here. I called on the flop thinking, or I mean on the turn, that I could still be ahead. So not much has really changed here on the river. If I made a wrong decision on the turn, I'm going to be making a wrong decision if I call here on the river. And again, just looking at the board, it's tough to have a hand on this board. I mean, he could always have like pocket 7s or pocket 8s or something like that, or a 6, you know, one of the obvious ones, but it's a lot easier to have a missed draw on this board than have an actual hand. And for that reason, after thinking it over and just that gut feeling that I had, I decide to put in a pretty ambitious call. And he says, "Nice call, you're good," and flips over 8-7 of hearts, kind of a hand that I put him on. And we take this down, calling a bet on the turn in on the river with ace high, catch him bluffing me on the vlog, and just have to let him know today is not the day that's going to happen, but on to the next one. This next hand, we're heading straight back to Bomb Pot City. I look down at, not that great of a hand, but it could be worse. Ace Jack, 6-7, 3 spades, 1 club. And the flop comes all the way, checks through. I have a little bit of equity, but can definitely improve. Pretty happy when it checks through all the way to the turn, where we somehow miraculously hit the nut flush up top, and we have an ace on the bottom. But I'm going to check it again, and it checks all the way to the button, who decides to bet out $50. And I could always raise here, but I would like to keep people in this pot, I think. Plus, I don't know, I never really barrel off on these until the river, or unless I know like I for sure have it locked up no matter what other cards come. So for those reasons, I decided to put in the call, and 3 other people call as well. So we go, or I mean, 2 other people call as well. So we go 4 ways to a river card. Looking for the board not to pair, and it does not. We get a clean run out. So we have the absolute nuts up top. And when I have one board just totally locked up, that is when it's time to apply maximum pressure to blow people off of a chop, especially when I'm so light on the bottom board. So that's what I do when it checks to me. I say, what is the pot? The dealer says 280, and I say, yeah, I bet that. And I throw out $280, and it's over on the button who did bet on the turn. He looks at his cards, obviously does not like the way things went down. He folds, and then everyone takes their time and eventually finds a fold as well. And we take down this bomb pot once again. We look down at A7 of spades in the cutoff. There's a raise from earlier position to $15, folds all the way to me. I could 3-bet this. I do like 3-betting some ace-x suited hands, but I just decided to flat call this one. Don't want to 3-bet them 100% of the time. Want to stay unpredictable. So I put in the call, and we go heads up to a flop, which comes queen, king, queen. And at this point, it's on him. He down bets to just $12. If I had a hand like 6-7 without a matching suit on the board, I'd probably just fold. But I have A7 of spades. I have a couple backdoor draws, have an overcard. So for that reason, for $12, I go ahead and stick around, seeing what develops on the turn. And we get a little bit of help with the 6 of spades. So we now have the nut flush draw back on my opponent here, who is definitely a capable opponent. Pretty good player, pretty good thinking guy. And he could definitely have some bluffs here. And it's kind of unusual to be betting. Like, if you have a hand on this board, you probably have the board totally crushed. So for that reason, I think he would probably check the flop a lot of times to me. So kind of weird, but like a little bit of reverse psychology. So when he bets the flop, it was a pretty easy call. And now he ups the sizing on the turn. He goes with the pot size bet of $60. And I think there's a good chance I could still be ahead here. Of course, I could be crushed. I'm not, an idiot. I could be crushed with king, queen, or pocket queens, pocket kings, etc. But again, I just don't think he would be blatantly betting like this with those hands. So the sixth sense is just kind of talking to me today. And if I'm wrong, if he does happen to have like ace, queen, queen, jack, something like that, I am drawing to the nut flush. So have a plan B in case I'm wrong here. But I go ahead and stick around to a river card and put in the call to $60, which does not hit us or the flush. Comes the 5 of clubs. So yeah, if I face another big bet here, definitely going to be time to shut it down. If he doesn't have it and he has the guts to go 3 streets, by all means, nice hand, you outplayed me. When he checks, though, I'm pretty relieved. I think about it for a minute, and I wasn't bluff catching, so I could bluff myself. So I decided to check back and announce I have ace high, and he nods and says, "You're good." And yeah, we scooped this one once again. Being a calling station today is just paying off for the better. Catching my opponents trying to bluff me off pots. But like I told them earlier, today is just not the day it's going to happen. That all leads us to our last hand of the night. I look down at ace-queen offsuit and raise it up to $35 over a straddle. And I get 3-bet by a fellow professional player to my left to $80. Very odd sizing. Not sure what to make of it. I'm out of position to him. So I think about 4-betting here with ace-queen. But I don't know. It's just I don't really love playing this in a 3-bet pot out of position, but I think sometimes it's okay. So for that reason, I decided to just put in the flat calls. I'm definitely never folding here, so let's go heads up to a flop, which we do. Everyone else folds of 2, 3, 4, all spades. So I flop a straight flush draw, and all things considered, I feel pretty good about my hand here. I think I can be ahead a lot of times unless I'm obviously, his range is uncapped. He could have aces, kings, queens, ace, king, but I do have blockers to a lot of those. So I check over to him, and he goes with about a 1/3 bet sizing of $60. For that amount, like I said, I'm definitely not going to be going anywhere. I don't think about it for too long. I've been playing a little bit quicker lately. I don't know. I don't like to sit in posture for too long. So I put in the call off to a turn card, which comes the 6 of clubs. So not much really changes on the board. He's not really going to have any 5s in his range other than ace 5, but he would already been there on the flop if he did. So I check to him. I'm going to be a little bit concerned if he continues on here, but he doesn't. Luckily, he checks it back, And the Miracle River card is the Queen of Spades, giving me top pair, top kicker. I mean, giving me the nut flush. So feeling good here. I'm not going to check this over just in case he does happen to have a large spade in his hand. I go to bet 150 and you see his cards quickly fly across the screen. He snap folds before I even have to put the bet on the table and says, nice hand, and we take down the final pot of the day. Feeling good, pretty easy going session here. Call down some bluffs, but pretty easy going for the most part. We're going to call it a day, head to the register, and get on out of here. We're going to call that a session today. Definitely a little bit different than my last one. Was playing a lot more hands, had a lot more playable cards, so felt good. Made me pretty grateful to like have some hands I can actually play. Ran pretty good today, not gonna lie. Made some tough call downs against some bluffs. Couple mistakes made also, as you're gonna make every session. But all in all, in for 1,500, out for 26.03. So profit of $1,100 in about 6 hours. I'll definitely take it. Gonna play a big tournament this week, so wish me some run good. And yeah, happy to bring you guys 2 videos in just 1 week. We're going to try to do that more regularly. Not gonna promise it every week because life does get busy, but nonetheless, want to give you guys some more content. So I'm not gonna ramble on too much longer. I'm satisfied with today. Gonna go enjoy the rest of the day, get to work on this video, and we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.